The Bladesinger is a fantastic class, allowing your wizard to have additional defensive and weapon options. However, many are often disappointed when they see that their best course of action in combat is just to continue casting spells, rather than hit things with their weapon. The Bladesinger's weapon scaling is sadly rather poor, with the class only getting an extra attack at level 6 to enhance their weapon use in combat, and a rather minor damage bump at level 14. That's the purpose of the Shadowsinger. Use all of Bladesinger's cool stuff, while augmenting it and complementing it with the Arcane Trickster's suite of tools. The final build consists of 9 levels of Arcane Trickster and 11 levels of Bladesinger. As with all of my builds, this is compatible with Adventurers League, though it can be significantly easier to make work in a game where one can use both the Sword Coast Adventures Guide and Xanthar's Guide to Everything content without scribing spells. You'll want to be a high elf so that you can become a Bladesinger at all. One can theoretically use a half-elf, but the charisma is wasted here, and we want the extra stats that High Elf provides. High Elf also gives us a wizard cantrip, which allows you to get access to Booming Blade in early levels. You will also want to get your dex to 16, your con to at least 14, being odd is fine if you plan to take Res Con, more on that later, and your int to 16. Any background can work just fine. Up to level 2, you'll want to take Rogue level so you can do rogue things, like have expertise, and a bunch of skills, and sneak attack. Sneak attack isn't the source of most of our damage later on, but it is very strong for us in early levels. Cast Booming Blade on enemies that you are in melee with, for some extra damage. At this point, the time at which you take your next rogue level to start being an Arcane Trickster doesn't matter very much, because you'll have good progression either way. You just need to take it at or before level 9. So at level 9 you would be a level 3 Arcane Trickster, and a level 6 Bladesinger. Otherwise, every level should go into Bladesinger. At some point, either by copying it into your spellbook if you're playing Adventurers League, or just taking it by leveling up. You should pick up Shadowblade. Buy a spell scroll if you need to, because this spell is very important to the build. If you think you're going to need to use a scroll, I recommend you use one of your expertise choices to pick Arcana to halve your chances of failure. You should also try and pick up Green Flame Blade, because you get a bunch of cantrips, but your other cantrips and spells don't matter too much, so just pick whatever spells you like. My recommendations go towards Shield, Absorb Elements, Fog Cloud, Find Familiar, Mage Armor, Invisibility, Mirror Image, Phantasmal Force, Fireball, Counterspell, and Phantom Steed. At these levels, you'll want to be casting Shadowblade and your Skag Trips periodically in combat, using Bladesong in order to maintain concentration, and using a hopefully magical short sword or rapier when you want to conserve your spell slots. Bladesong is very important for us because it gives us much needed AC and a powerful bonus to our concentration checks. Out of combat, you gain lots of utility from spells and from your expertise. I like to always be casting a ritual spell while exploring, like a Phantom Steed or an Unseen Servant. From this point, you'll want to continue taking Arcane Trickster levels up through level 9 of Arcane Trickster for some more defensive and utility options. Level 6 grants you 2 additional expertise options, with level 7 granting evasion. Level 9 gives you Magical Ambush, which is one of the most powerful class features for a caster. There are very few encounters in this game that can beat a Hypnotic Pattern, Slow, or Banishment Ambush. Before you get Ambush, your combats will typically consist of either casting powerful wizard spells like Fireball, or activating Bladesong and then attacking twice with a Shadowblade. Your Skag Trips can also be used when you want to guarantee the extra damage off of them, and you only have advantage on one attack, or when you aren't using your Shadowblade. At this point, you're rounding out the end of Tier 3, and you have your most important rogue features. The rest of your build consists of Bladesinger levels up to level 11, grabbing additional value spells. Song of Defense does give you some additional defensive value, but the real reason to go for more Bladesinger levels is the power you get from one particular 6th level spell, Tensor's Transformation. This spell is like a souped up version of Shadowblade, adding 2d12 damage to your already magical weapon and giving you advantage to trigger sneak attack. The spell also grants you a mythical 50 temporary hit points and proficiency in con saves in order to maintain concentration. It lasts 10 minutes, which means you can typically cast it before you go into a big fight. The spell also stacks with your Bladesong, and you can still use your spell slots to absorb damage with Song of Defense. Other spell choices up to this point include Banishment, Confusion, Sickening Radiance, Vitriolic Sphere, Cone of Cold, Dominate Person, Skill Empowerment, Steel Wind Strike, Synaptic Static, and Contingency. Feats. Many of our feat options are tied up in our ability scores, since we want to get to 20 dexterity as soon as possible. Increasing our intelligence score is also very powerful since it boosts our DCs, concentration saves, and our AC. Unfortunately, if we max out our dex and int, we have no other feats available when using point buy. Resilient Con and Wiz are useful for evening out odd stats and boosting our saves, since we only have dex and int saves, but Res Con is eventually made partially redundant by Tensor's Transformation. Generally, good feats like Alert, or to preference Lucky, are also decent options. Warcaster can be a good option to seal your concentration saves, and lets you get juicy Booming Blade opportunity attacks. Finally, Elven Accuracy is a fantastic choice, but is unfortunately not AL legal because it is in Xanthars, which we lack access to. Alternative options. You can go for 11 levels of Arcane Trickster instead of 11 levels of Bladesinger, which treats Contingency and Tensor's Transformation for reliable talent and an additional feat option, getting us up to 5 feats. You can also try to fit 2 Paladin levels in there for Smites, for some extra Nova potential, sacrificing either Magical Ambush or Tensors, or giving up 4 levels of Bladesinger to go 2 Paladin, 11 AT, 7 Bladesinger, but that costs you in both progression and utility. Warlock levels may be taken for Devil Sight in your team, but it can mess with some allies because you use melee combat, and it similarly messes with your progression. Both the Paladin and the Warlock multiclasses can run into problems with meeting the multiclass stat requirements. Magic items. You generally want a magical sidearm for light encounters. Other items, like those that grant additional spells, are powerful options. Consider items like a wand of fireballs, or lightning bolts, or staves of power, the Magi. Defensive items, like bracers of defense, or eventually robes of the Archmagi, are high value. Notably, while a Scimitar of Speed is normally the apex of rogue items, it is surprisingly low value to us due to our high bonus action commitment and our multi-attack, as well as conjuring powerful weapons already. Belts of Giant Strength and Headbands of Intellect can be of high value, because they offer us a large bonus on our ability scores for a low investment. That's all there really is to it. Get on out there and slice some monsters up with Shadow Blades. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to get notified whenever I release a new video. If you have any feedback about the format or a build that you would want to see covered, make sure to leave it in the comments down below.